Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Corn Productions with my co-host Stacie here to talk about Quantum Leap, Season 5, Episode 14, titled Dr. Ruth. The episode's description reads as follows. Sam leaps into the sex therapist Dr. Ruth Westmeyer, plays matchmaker for a couple on the staff of a radio show, and helps a woman deal with sexual harassment. The episode was written by Robin Bernheim. Her last credit of 5 will be Memphis Melody. The episode was directed by Stuart Margolin, 125 acting credits for him, 58 directorial credits. This is his only work on this series. The episode takes place on April 25th, 1985, which means that this episode actually occurred within my lifetime. Did it occur in your lifetime?
Yes.
It did, okay.
How much younger do you think I am than you?
You know what? I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. I mean, I wouldn't imagine it was that much, but...
82 I was born.
82, okay.
So, yeah.
All right.
So you managed to say Dr. Ruth's name wrong. That's a new one.
Oh, really? I said it wrong?
You said it's Dr. Ruth Westheimer.
What'd I say?
I don't know, but it wasn't that.
Okay. I mean, we're not really surprised by that, are we?
No, it's
okay.
our thing, if anybody doesn't know that yet.
Yeah. This episode originally aired on January 19th, 1993. Before going further, I'll tell you a couple things. One, this is not a appropriate podcast. If you haven't watched the episode, I recommend you go check it out. And then come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're listening on the platforms of this podcast is now available on, please follow. And feel free to check out our YouTube channel, Corn Productions, where additional content can be discovered, both Quantum Leap related and otherwise. If you're already on our YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, and subscribe to our channel. All right. So... you might have noticed that we did not record last week. My co-host called in sick last week.
I was very ill.
Very ill. She didn't want to cough and hack her way through a podcast or two. So this episode was delayed. But we got shout-outs for Alpha.
Before you do that, I just want to say, yeah, the stars almost aligned because we were supposed to record this on April 25th. Which is the date of the leap.
Oh, okay.
So it was almost perfect. And then,
almost.
Then I ruined it.
Yeah, you just ruined it for us. All right, so Alpha said, Alpha basically commented a bunch of different expressions to describe boobs in honor of Al's performance in this episode, where he can't even say the words to Dr. Ruth later. And he basically says that Al brings out the inner 12-year-old in him. So, yeah, there's that, Alpha.
All right.
Mimi Gallup said 9 episodes left. I was a little bit optimistic with the whole 12 or 13 episodes.
Yeah, when we recorded that episode, I
for
some reason had the number 26 in my head. I don't know why. It's 22 for Quantum Leap.
Right.
And I don't know what show I was thinking of that's got 26 episodes in a season.
Maybe Star Trek?
It's not this.
Star Trek Next Generation, maybe?
I wouldn't know those numbers.
Right.
I don't know.
So after this episode, there's actually only 8 episodes left.
That's so sad.
I know. And she says it's great that we will keep talking about the series even after we've concluded. Ashley Wright says, he always thought about the intimate issues when Sam played a woman. You know what? I tried very hard not to think about those issues.
Well, as we had mentioned during Liberation, that was really the first time he was a female that had a partner.
Mm-hmm.
It was easy enough for him to avoid those situations in his other female leaps.
Yes.
I think.
Despite Buddy Wright's best efforts.
Right.
And my final shout out is for Anne. Anne is not a person who commented anywhere, but Anne, she commented personally to me, which is a very rare thing for me. So I made up some business cards and actually handed some out to some customers that I connected with, that I had conversations with. Anne happened to be one of them. And she happened to actually listen to us.
All right.
And she listened to our Groundhog Day podcast, and she basically said that she had never thought about how basically the director wanted more of a rom-com kind of movie, whereas Bill Murray wanted something darker, and it ended up slash jazz in the middle. And she had never thought of it that way. So I made her think about something new in a new and different way.
Wow.
And then she proceeded to give me a rock that she had painted. She actually, I guess, does that a lot. So now she's in like my top 5 best friends, even though I haven't seen her since. But once you give somebody a rock that's painted, that just means you're best friends. Like,
of course,
I don't make the rules. It's just how it is.
For people who don't have any friends, we have a lot of best friends.
Yes. I mean, when we don't have a lot of best friends, everybody's your best friend.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I that was one of the few times that I've gotten feedback directly to me about a podcast that we did.
Awesome.
So that was pretty cool. And so that means that actually worked, and I didn't think it would. So you never know. And all right, so Stacie, your thoughts on this week's episode?
Oh, how did I know you were going to ask me that?
Because I usually do.
Usually do. Yeah, and you'd think I'd like have something prepared to
Right.
say, but I usually don't. So Dr. Ruth, you know, I don't think my opinion's changed much over the other times we've briefly brought this up. You know, by watching it again, I think it still sits right about where I thought it would. It's not. It's a gimmicky episode. It's there. It's fine.
Yeah, it's an okay episode. I would certainly I think this is definitely better than something like Heart of a Champion. It's more coherent in its story than that episode was. The gimmick doesn't necessarily distract from the overall story as much as that episode did.
I don't know. I mean...
But I also have an issue slightly that the tone of one of the stories doesn't match the rest of the episode. The whole sexual harassment leading to the eventual stakes of death does not match the rest of the goopiness of the rest of the episode. In fact, the goopiness of the episode actively undermines that part of the story. I think pairing the lighthearted nature of this episode with that story was not necessarily the greatest of ideas. It doesn't really detract from the episode that much, but it definitely undermines that part of the story. Mm-hmm. So my opinion hasn't really improved for this episode, but what this episode did is make me actually appreciate Dr. Ruth a little bit more. And Dr. Ruth, of course, is no longer with us, but if this episode is a true representation of what she stood for, and I have no reason to believe otherwise, then I agree with what she stood for, even if I don't exactly embody those opinions and beliefs. I mean, like when my daughter comes to me with a question of this type of nature, my answer is usually go ask your mom, because it's not a topic that I'm particularly comfortable talking about. And I know that when she goes to her mom, she's going to get an equally useless answer. But so I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with a lot of what Dr. Ruth stands for. And this episode actually kind of made me appreciate Dr. Ruth a little bit more, who unfortunately is no longer with us.
Yeah, Dr. Ruth just passed last year.
Yep. July 12th, 2024, at the age of 96.
Yeah, you want to know something about that? Is, of course, in prepping for this, I'm all over IMDb, right, taking notes on everybody. So I look at Dr. Ruth's IMDb page, and you know what I should find on her page? Is us.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
She has, so few television credits, right? Because she's not a television person.
Yeah.
Most of them are self-credits, like this one. Mm-hmm. So that, very quickly I got down to the thanks section.
Right.
Where we had dedicated an episode to her when she passed last year.
Yes.
And I'm not remembering off the top of my head. It was just whatever episode.
I don't remember which episode
whatever
that
episode
was.
of the week we were on. But we had dedicated that episode in the memory of Dr. Ruth, and we were like right there, front and center on her IMDb page.
That's funny.
And that's the first time I've encountered that. I mean, I know that we're on these people's pages, right?
Yeah.
But this is the first time that I'm actively looking at someone's page, and it's like, oh, there's us. Like, it surprised me.
Yeah.
And that was super cool. That was
Yes.
so cool to just be like, oh, look, Corbin Productions is just like there, hanging out when I wasn't looking for it.
Yeah, it's funny. She, in total, she had 13 credits, most of it playing herself. As you said, there were a couple of credits there where she was actually playing a different character. And at least a couple of them where I was not totally sure either way, whether she was playing herself or a different character, because the description of the character that she was playing was pretty vague.
Well, possibly fictionalized versions of herself.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess that's what she is here.
Yeah, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
But yeah. So do we have anything else to say before diving in?
I'll leave anything else until it comes up naturally in discussion.
All right. So Sam leaps in and finds himself the host of a talk show, getting asked a sex question. He looks up and sees the reflection of Dr. Ruth. Oh boy! Credits. And like I said, Dr. Ruth has 13 credits, mostly as an actress playing herself, but she has a couple of different characters in there as well. And like I also said, she passed away on July 12th, 2024 at the age of 96, which is a pretty good run.
Yeah, of course she is a real life person.
Right, yeah.
If anybody missed that fact.
Right.
Sex therapist. She did run a popular radio show in the 80s. This show that she's working on here in the episode is fictionalized.
Gotcha.
But it's very similar to what she actually did in real life.
Gotcha.
The show had a different name, which I didn't take note of, but it was the same type of thing. And she also wrote books, just like she did in this episode and things like that.
All right. When we come back, Sam struggles to answer the questions that he's being asked, and then continues to struggle to answer the questions put to him. He's observed by his producers, Doug and Debbie, who are very confused by his performance. Doug is played by Peter Spears. 11 credits as an actor, including the movie Nomadland, which was pretty recent, 2 episodes of Matlock, and Father of the Bride 2. He also is a producer on 11 projects, which he seems to be doing more of these days than anything else.
Okay.
Anything else for him?
He was in the movie Something's Gotta Give and 1 episode of Friends.
Okay, and Debbie is played by Anita Barone. She has 59 credits, including 2 episodes of A Million Little Things, 18 episodes of The Jeff Foxworthy Show, and an episode of Empty Nest.
She also was in 2 episodes of Party of 5 and 1 episode of Friends.
Debbie is confused by what Dr. Ruth is doing, while Doug thinks it's funny, and we get an early hint at their combative relationship. Debbie goes to commercial and asks Dr. Ruth if she's okay. Al appears 4 minutes and 16 seconds into the episodes to call one of Sam's answers kinky. Sam thinks he needs to get out of there fast. Al says sex is not a dirty thing, and being frank about it and teaching our kids to be safe and morally responsible is better than sweeping it under the rug. That's, once again, an opinion I absolutely agree with. Again, I don't exactly embody that principle, but I do think that it's what we need to do. Sam finds that to be a surprisingly mature attitude coming from Al, but it's coming from Dr. Ruth, because that's who's basically gave that to Al.
Right, this is our first hint that Al is talking to Dr. Ruth in the waiting room, which he'll continue to do throughout the episode. My comment here, as well as many other times, is when did you have time for that?
Right.
Sam's been here about 30 seconds. He's
Right.
taken 2 phone calls on a radio show, and Al has managed to have time to have a whole session with Dr. Ruth?
I guess. So Al leaves and the show begins when he gets a call from Annie, who has a problem with her boss, who's harassing her. Annie is played by Robin Lively. 108 credits for her, including The Good Doctor, Karate Kid 3, and she reprised that role for an episode of Cobra Kai. Interesting little tidbit here, but she was actually cast as the love interest for Daniel Russo in Karate Kid 3, but at the time she was actually 16, which was a minor, and Ralph Macchio, who played the Karate Kid, was 27. So instead, and nobody was comfortable with this arrangement. So they instead made them really good friends, and in fact, she ends up dropping out of the narrative towards the end of the film, which was kind of weird at the time. But I found that interesting.
She was also in 1 episode of The X-Files.
Oh, I missed that one.
Yeah, that's usually something you pick up on. 6 episodes of Twin Peaks. And 1 episode of The Affair.
Okay.
And Robin Lively, she is the sister of Blake Lively.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know that either, but I was looking at her and I was like, I wonder if they're related, because I kind of see a little bit of a resemblance.
So is Robin has to be the oldest.
Robin
right?
is the senior by a big number. I don't remember the number, but it was one of those.
I figured because
Yeah.
Blake Lively is or was really young at this time.
Right.
Yeah. So Sam is invested in Annie trying to talk to her, but the show is ending, and she says she has to go anyway, leaving Sam disturbed, and he basically just keeps repeating Annie over and over and again, and he's not very happy that they got cut off. And initially, I thought what Debbie thought too, that she was just hung up on, but that it turns out not to be the case.
Yeah, Doug says he didn't cut her off; she hung up.
Right. Doug does say at this point that Annie can meet Dr. Ruth at Cleary's bookstore, which is an upcoming event. So that does happen here, and it does come back into play. Debbie is giving Doug crap for cutting her off, and Doug says he kept her on the line, but she ended up hanging up. Debbie apologizes to Dr. Ruth, and Sam wants to trace the call. I'm kind of curious how that would have been possible from, just a radio station office, but whatever. It's not like they're like the CIA or the FBI or anything like that.
I mean, nowadays,
Right.
I'm sure you know exactly where the calls are coming
Right.
from at a radio station. But
Right.
yeah, in 85, no, not so much.
So Doug and Debbie keep fighting when Al appears. Sam thinks Annie is the reason he's here, And Al missed that call because he was talking to Dr. Ruth some more, and this is the exact same problem that you were just talking about.
Right. He's been gone for 2 minutes, and he comes back, and he's like, yeah, I just had another session with her. Like, what is the time distortion here? It feels very different than usual.
Right.
And also, Sam's intuition that he's here to help Annie, like, that seemed out of nowhere. He took half a dozen calls, and you just know that, like, that call was important.
Well, that call happened to stand out because it was about being sexually harassed.
Sure, but she didn't really get into it too far.
Yeah.
They had, like, a 30-second conversation.
It was enough to get Sam invested,
but Sam's like, that's why I'm here. That's the purpose of my leap.
Right. And Al thinks that he's off his rocker and that he's there for a totally different reason. So Sam explains the story and wants the odds, but only has a first name. And there are 6,280 Annies in Manhattan.
In 1984,
right?
Al says, even though it's 1985 right now,
right?
So she's probably not even on that list because we find out she just moved here,
right?
So if he's looking at a whole year earlier, she's not even one of the 6,280.
So Al wants him to forget about Annie. Ziggy says there's a 72% chance that he's there to play matchmaker to Doug and Debbie. Once again, we have a really low number here. Like, for the last couple episodes, we've had, like, numbers in the 70s for why Sam is there. Basically, we see them fight, and Ziggy says that they belong together, and we see them passing by as they're still fighting. And then we see, we cut to the bookstore. We see a man standing outside the bookstore. We don't know who this person is initially, but this is Jonathan, played by James McDonald. 56 credits for him, including the episode of The X-Files, Bones, and a Star Trek TNG game called Hidden Evil. He has a 47-episode stint on One Life to Live from 1979 to 1980. That was actually his first credit.
Oh, he also was in one episode of The Event.
Where Sam is, we pan by Annie without knowing it. And an older woman thinks his chapter on foreplay was very imaginative. I believe this is Ellen Arbentini Dow, 109 credits for her, including Highway to Heaven, not another teen movie, and Sister Act. She died on May 4th, 2015, at the age of 101. She outlived Dr. Ruth.
Wow. Yeah, she actually was in both Sister Act 1 and 2.
Okay.
An episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, 4 episodes of Family Matters, and an episode of Scrubs.
And you know what's funny? I think I know what episode of Star Trek Next Generation she was in. I think she was in Sub Rosa as Beverly, Beverly's grandmother. You wouldn't know what I'm talking about, but anyway.
Okay.
There's another woman, and then Annie, who apologizes for hanging.
Well, the other woman, we got credit for her too.
Okay.
So Ellen's character was credited as Grandma. This other woman is credited as Other Woman.
Okay.
Go figure.
Right, as I just called her.
She's played by Mary Shear. She was in
Mary
episode of Two Broke Girls and 28 episodes of iCarly.
Okay. And then we see Annie, who apologizes for hanging up on her. And it's kind of funny that she just kind of, like, doesn't, like, hey, I was the one that called. She just kind of assumes that Dr. Ruth knows who she is. And and Sam, of course, does know. But it's funny that she just assumes that Sam would know.
Because her name's Annie.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
She doesn't know there's 6,280 Annies in Manhattan.
All right, and also, at the same time, how many days have passed since this phone call? I mean, like...
Well, no, I think it's supposed to be the same day.
Okay.
Or maybe the next morning.
Okay.
I'd have to look at the outfits. And it's funny because Dr. Ruth / Sam only wears blue dresses through this entire episode, and if you're not paying attention, it looks like the same dress the entire time.
Right. Yeah.
But when you're really looking at the pictures, which I had to do to make our thumbnail, it's like, oh, there's a different blue dress. Like, he is changing.
All right.
It's just they're all very similar.
Gotcha.
So if we were to look exactly at what dress he's wearing, we'd be able to tell if it was the same day or not. But I don't think like a lot of time has passed.
All right. So she works at a law office. Her boss is Jonathan. She feels stupid for letting what happened happen, but Sam says she isn't stupid. He offers to go with her for coffee, but then, she's like, I don't drink coffee. But then he suggests root beer floats. But Annie spots Jonathan, runs off. Sam ends up chasing after her, almost running into people at the bookstore. And unfortunately, she ends up getting away.
Yeah, she gets on a bus.
Yep.
Sam tries hailing a cab. That doesn't go very well.
Mm-hmm. Al shows up. Sam uses a phone booth to give Al the full name, but the details on her are sketchy. Sam thinks she's in big trouble, and Al says no, he's the one in big trouble because Doug and Debbie, who Dr. Ruth describes as perfect for each other, are currently fighting or whatever.
Yeah, the odds of them getting back together have slipped 12%.
Oh, no.
So Sam is ruining things for Doug and Debbie.
Even though I guess they didn't work out the first time. And,
they've broken up 4 times already.
That actually is a good question, and Sam actually asked it. Why is Sam better for this than Dr. Ruth
Well,
was?
we get to that by the end of the episode.
We do? Okay.
Because the answer is that's not why he's here.
Right, okay. Right, okay. But it's just kind of an incidental thing that Sam fixes that Dr. Ruth originally did not.
Yeah, because, Al
Maybe
keeps telling him he has to, so he does.
Right, so Dr. Ruth maybe didn't care about this drama playing out in front of her?
Well, she didn't care enough to actually fix it, I guess.
Gotcha. So Sam wonders why he's there. Oh, okay, so we're right there. Why he's there instead of Dr. Ruth. Al says it must be because you can do something she can't, which Al says is hard for him to believe, as he's currently being counseled by Dr. Ruth. Al is unhelpful, so Sam asks Debbie. Oh, yeah, Al is basically unhelpful in explaining why.
Al has a line in here that basically says Sam better get them back together or he's going to be stuck here in 1985 as Dr. Ruth forever.
Which is funny because
we're in season 5.
We've specifically stated several times now that success has nothing to do with weeping.
That's the part of the story we're supposed to be in right now.
Right, yeah.
Is it doesn't matter if you succeed or not.
Right, yeah.
So, yeah.
So here's another contradiction to the rules that they just kind of throw at you. But... yeah, so Sam ends up asking Debbie why they broke up, and she, of course, has several sex-related reasons why, which is making Sam uncomfortable. Doug ends up arriving. He's apparently unaware that Debbie was supposed to be at this dinner. They start bickering, and we cut to the waiting room, who has a new... Dr. Ruth. This is another instance of seeing the waiting room in Season 5 with Dr. Ruth. She's getting a new fitting wardrobe and some glasses.
Yeah, so this is... I feel like it's very silly that they brought this up and brought attention to it.
Yeah.
So we bring up the fact that Sam's clothes doesn't fit this very tiny, petite woman. And we fitted her with clothes that fit her. They've replicated her glasses so she can see, because they are addressing it's her there. She's physically there. So that tracks with what we're supposed to be believing right now. But bringing attention to the fact that these clothes don't fit her just brings attention to the fact that her clothes should not be fitting Sam.
Or
any character he lives into.
Right, like what happened when Bobo the chimp showed up.
Right, and exactly. And this is drawing the 14-year-old attention to that fact.
Right, yeah. And that's not something you want to be, dragged into. You don't want to be thinking about these types of issues.
But here we are addressing the fact that Dr. Ruth needs her clothes fitted.
Yeah.
Yet Sam's wearing her blue dresses perfectly fine.
Right.
Which is so silly because, other times he's leapt into women, like particularly like the first time, right? When he was Samantha Stormer. They very specifically got a mirror image actress who was very tall, same thing when he was... like the Darlene Monty.
Okay.
A tall beauty queen, right?
Yes, yeah.
So they're people who, the reflections in the mirror, it wasn't too hard to, imagine that they're the right stature, right? So when people are looking at Sam, it doesn't feel like they're looking in a 2 feet different place from where this person should be.
Right.
That's not the case with Dr. Ruth. She is, all of 4'10".
Right, yeah. It's a pretty serious issue. And, it's one thing if you, just kind of whatever it, but then if you draw attention to it, it's a whole other deal.
Yeah.
Because then you start thinking about it, and you do not want to think about this. I don't want to, because I would get an instant headache, because it just brings up all the instances of when Sam left into a pregnant lady, or when Sam was a chimp, or when Sam was a child, so on and so forth. But, yeah, so they're in the middle of a counseling session. Al says he likes variety, which Dr. Ruth says you can get with one person. He says she's very disappointed in Al. As a person from the future, they should have a healthier attitude towards sex. It's not like they're that far in the future. But anyway.
Well, 85 to 99, that's...
15 years.
15 years.
Okay.
It's a long time for her.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, she's going to be... Well, actually, she's going to live for another 20-something years.
I know. How old is this woman now?
Because
in my head, she's this old lady, but I guess she's not.
She died at the age of 96, and this was 20-something years before, so she would have been in her 70s.
Yeah.
which is, up there.
Still pretty old for,
Right.
A working, she's very active in her career still. I mean, I think she always was.
And pretty soon she's going to be running around all over the place and, jumping around on cars. And anyway, moving along.
So she's suggesting things in this session about sex toys and video cameras, which Al's really uncomfortable with, which is weird.
It's a very prudish kind of attitude for Al, because you figured you'd be all over that.
Exactly. He's showing a different side with her than he normally would express. And maybe it's just because he's talking to a 70-year-old woman.
I mean, it could be that, but it could also be that the side that we usually see him talking to Sam is all bluster.
Right.
And it's not really who he is when it comes down to it. He's not, the sex god that he paints himself out to be, or he's not really comfortable with some of these things that Dr. Ruth is talking about that you think he would be, but it's not really who he actually is at the core. That's possible. And she thinks that he has an issue being afraid of something, being afraid of being abandoned, which of course tracks with his character.
He starts talking about the orphanage.
Yep.
So she's getting somewhere with him very quickly.
Yeah. And it's actually surprising that they didn't already get to this, because they've been spending so much time in session in the 30 seconds that he has before showing up to Sam. But back to Debbie and Doug arguing. Al appears through a cherry jubilee, which is on fire, which brought up Scrooge for me for a moment there. And Sam starts channeling Dr. Ruth, mind merging, which is
what it brought up for me was the other movie we covered. The Holdovers.
Oh, yeah, okay.
They had a cherry jubilee
Right,
scene.
that's right. Yep. And so he's channeling Dr. Ruth, which is something we've been playing with all season long, starting with the Lee Harvey Oswald episode, though it did occur earlier that in an episode like Dreams. But yeah, he thinks they fear being abandoned too. And at first it seems like he might be getting somewhere with them, but then it quickly returns to arguing again from there, and ends with Debbie pouring water on Doug and running off. Sam says he obviously loves her. He thinks the problem with the 80s was not talking about their feelings enough, which is interesting. Doug brings up Brenda Jacobs, who he apparently ends up running away with, according to Al, which ends up in disaster. Debbie ends up writing for a retirement newspaper, and they end up going to the studio, back to the studio.
Yeah, so in other words, we're actually getting the original history here.
Right.
Which we haven't in a while, so that's refreshing. And that is that, yes, they do not end up together, and they're both miserable.
Al leaves because he's on the verge of a major breakthrough with Dr. Ruth. Sam does promos, which he's highly uncomfortable with. Basically, he ends up doing them badly.
Yeah, he's stumbling all over his words. He's just completely incapable of reading the prompts on a piece of paper in front of him.
Sam doesn't want to do any of them when Annie calls.
And why is Doug taking phone calls when they're at the studio late at night, just recording promos? They're not on the air tonight.
Not really sure, but maybe he was just informed of the fact... that Annie was called, and so he told Dr. Wood, and he wasn't actually taking the phone calls. But Annie thinks that someone is outside, but she won't hang up and call the police because she's scared. The call is interrupted, and Sam ends up going on a run.
Yeah, so he goes to see her, and on the same note, why the heck is she calling the little old lady at the radio station, who's not even on the air right now, by the way, so how do you even know she's there?
Right.
Why are you calling a radio station to tell them that you heard a noise and you think somebody's breaking into your house? I mean, I get this whole connection and how she felt comfortable talking to Dr. Ruth, but lady,
right,
call the police.
Right. Which is something that Sam even says to her, like, hang up and call the police. What are you doing? But, so Sam arrives at the house, coughing. I think he is with her landlord. Yeah. And they're both coughing. Annie is unconscious, and it turns out to be the gas stove is on. Sam helps her regain consciousness. Annie thinks that Jonathan was responsible for that, but there is no evidence whatsoever, and she thinks that Jonathan ended up taking the evidence for blowing out the light or whatever.
Yeah, so Sam asks, is it possible you forgot to light the stove? Because she has, one of the old stoves. You had to manually light the gas with a match. And she looks through the trash can and she's like, the match is here. He must have taken it. And I'm
Right.
pretty sure the takeaway from this is she did just leave the gas on.
I don't know.
That's what I'm getting from this.
I mean, maybe Jonathan actually did break into her house to blow out the flame, and then like took the matches for some reason.
I don't think he did.
It's a really bizarre setup.
I don't think he did.
No.
I think what it comes down to is she is paranoid. She has a real reason to be paranoid. But I think she did just mess up with the gas because she was distracted by the noise she heard.
Right. So Sam offers up some solution. He talks her into quitting. He says he can help her clean out her desk. And she's confused why someone so famous would help her. And Sam says, how do you think I got so famous?
Yeah, but also, if you didn't think she'd help you, why are you calling her?
Also, it's interesting. Her age is stated here, and she's stated as 19, which I believe is actually around the same age that Lively actually was.
Oh, I missed that fact. Yeah. She's supposed to be 19?
Yes.
Wow.
Yep. And yeah, she's living on her own, and
she's doing pretty good for herself. Like, career, she's got a very large apartment in Manhattan for 19.
Right. Better than I'm doing now, or ever will do. So we cut back to another session between Al and Dr. Ruth. Ruth asks about Tina, and he basically ends up saying every name in the book to describe boobs, kind of like Alpa did, until Dr. Ruth demands he actually say it. And he eventually manages to say it. Wow, that's real progress for Al.
Can you say it, Dave? Because you still have it. That's
boobs,
not the word.
Breasts. Okay,
breasts is the word.
All right.
So according,
well, this is a family channel. I'm trying to keep it clean.
That is the clean word.
Okay.
That's kind of the point.
Gotcha.
According to Beyond the Mirror Image, there was a passage in there that Dr. Ruth was actually quite impressed. Dean Stockwell recited this whole dialogue, word for word from the script. It had zero trouble following, and she found that totally fascinating that he was able to pull this little dialogue off.
Yeah, Dean Stockwell was a pretty great actor. Imagine that. So Annie and Sam end up leaving the office and run into Jonathan. Sam sends her on her way, and he talks to Jonathan, who denies everything. And by the way, this character is completely uninteresting. He's just a mustache-twirling villain. There's nothing interesting about his character. And it's not like they give him a lot of time in this episode. In fact, I don't know. I think they maybe should have given Annie a different problem. I think it should have been a little bit more in line with the rest of the episode, which is more of a goofy tone. You know, the one episode that did have like a consistent tone throughout is A Tale of Two Sweeties. Like, even when it got darker, it was still played lightly. Whereas this episode, like, when it gets into the Annie stuff, it's kind of like suddenly really dark, and just the tone does not fit the rest of the episode.
I mean, I think that's the story they were going for.
Right.
I think the problem is they paired it with the gimmickiness of what can we do with a guest star.
Right, yeah. Yep.
So yeah, Jonathan basically is saying, I'm not the crazy stalker. Right. She is.
Mm-hmm. And also here, I couldn't help but be a little distracted by what was going on in the background. In the background, you have two people standing in an elevator, and they're just sitting there staring at it. And then, like, you have this, like, a guy, like, he pushes the button, and then you kind of hear them say something along the lines of, oh, it's, like, it takes forever, blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't come down until Jonathan is ready to get onto it. And it was just kind of a really kind of weird background.
Okay, did you pick up on what that scene was?
Yeah, basically, no. Okay.
Okay, so the background, the woman in the background, she's overhearing this, and she's saying to her friend, did you hear what they just said? This character is named Anita.
Okay.
She is meant to be Anita Hill.
Okay.
So basically, this is their kiss with history.
Well, that was very... that was way too subtle.
It's very subtle.
It's out of focus, first of all.
Yeah, so the character's only credited as Anita, but it is meant to be Anita Hill, who's about to, have her own situation where she's going to come out as, for sexual harassment. So this is supposed to be a kiss with history.
Against Clarence Thomas, the Supreme Court Justice.
So that's what this is supposed to be, is Sam is influencing that whole scenario.
Interesting.
So Anita's played by Bridget Morrow. She was in one episode of 90210, an episode of Malcolm and Eddie. And from Al's place, the actress who played Anita's friend was Doreen Hamilton, but she's uncredited, so I didn't have any information on her.
Gotcha. Yeah, to me, I didn't realize what that was about. It was just like a really distracting thing going on.
Yeah,
in the
I don't
background.
think I would have known other than the fact that I've read it in all these places
Gotcha.
over the years.
Okay.
Yeah, to the point where they don't even credit her as Anita Hill. They just credit her as Anita.
Right.
So it's like this is the story they're trying to tell, but it's all just kind of breadcrumbed in there, you know?
Yeah. All right, so Sam answers a question passionately about not getting breast implants because of the danger of silicone that, eventually that, will be proven to cause cancer if it leaks. Al tells him that he ends up talking 421 people out of getting breast implants.
That would have gone
Right.
on to have adverse
Right.
reactions,
Right.
not just in total.
Gotcha.
So, in other words, Sam's doing a really good thing right now. He has a voice,
Yep.
and he's starting to realize, like, hey, maybe this isn't so bad.
Right. Sam says that he realizes how many people he could help. He starts talking about, curbing teen pregnancy or curing AIDS. Maybe not curing AIDS, but stopping the spread of infection of that.
Slowing the spread, definitely, yeah.
Debbie asks if he's okay because he's basically being seen talking to himself, and he basically says he's just practicing. And he's asked about the bookstore incident. He could just tell the truth here, but he makes up some weird lie. He could just talk about Annie, how he was trying to get to her,
Right.
because she was like spooked and running away. But he makes up some weird lie that he does not need to tell. He gets them to apologize to each other, and they seemingly start making progress. And then Doug ends up getting a call from Brenda, and things devolve back into fighting once again.
Yeah. Any progress they made quickly disintegrates.
So back on the air we go, and Al appears to tell Sam that Annie is in danger and she only has 2 hours to live.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's going to die sometime in the next 2 hours. That's all we know.
So we've suddenly upped the stakes, and I gotta ask, did Sam change history to make it so that she dies in 2 hours?
You know, that's a good point, probably. Because she quit her job.
Right. So if she had just stayed in the situation she was
She'd
in...
have been, sexually harassed, but maybe not murdered.
Right. Okay, so... but yeah, so there's this 2 hour stakes of she's gonna die in 2 hours. The episode doesn't seem to care. Sam doesn't seem to care because he's on the air and he basically tries to turn the tables back on Doug and Debbie. He's
He's trying to figure out an excuse
Right.
to leave.
Right.
But yeah, he I'm surprised he doesn't just get up and leave. 'Cause
Right.
That's what he did last time when she
Right.
called.
Right. She hears a noise and he goes running, but she's gonna be murdered in 2 hours, and he's just like, ugh. Anyway.
We got 2 hours to deal
Right.
with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
Yeah.
And also, we don't know anything about how she dies.
Right.
Just that she's going to die sometime in the next 2 hours.
Which is very oddly specific.
Right, without having any further details.
Right.
And the fact that we're suggesting Jonathan killed her because of what Sam did.
Right.
That's also very silly of him.
Right.
Dr. Ruth, a famous person, was just confronting you about sexually harassing her, and you're going to go kill her? You're going to be a suspect.
Right. I mean, that's the thing is, his character, one, we don't focus on him at all, and two, his character, what we do know, doesn't make any sense. He's a high-powered guy. Okay, he's sexually harassing this girl who quits. And then you're going to go to her house and then murder her? Why? Why are you going to jeopardize...
I don't think he's going there to murder her.
Okay.
He's going there to confront her, to rape her.
Yeah.
And she dies,
That's not any better.
It's not any better, no, but you think he'd be really careful about her right now.
Yeah.
Because of having been confronted by Dr. Ruth.
Yeah, I mean... So, anyway... basically, Sam turns the tables on Doug and Debbie and gets them to talk about their relationship on the air. He starts mind merging with Dr. Ruth again. Sam says Al to hang out with Annie, and we see Annie getting a knock at the door, and it turns out to be Jonathan. And then we come back to Sam, and oh yeah, by the way, Al just stands there forever, letting the scene play out without going back to Sam to let him know what's going on. Like, he's literally like, "Oh, don't you dare do anything!" But like, Al, what are you doing?
Yeah,
Go tell Sam what's going on.
The situation,
right?
Like, we got a pretty good idea of how she dies now.
Right. So, all right. So Sam then admits that they. Oh, okay. No. Sam gets them to admit that Doug and Debbie end up backing out of the relationship because they're afraid the other is going to back out first. Doug admits to being crazy about Debbie, and then Debbie ends up admitting it too. And while they're making out in the studio, which is not very good radio, there's also another caller involved in this. That's like basically like trying to get invested in the situation. And Sam ends up sneaking out with the two of them making out while the radio program is continuing. But yeah, okay.
Meanwhile, Jonathan is being super creepy to Annie.
Yeah.
She ends up pulling a knife on him.
Right. And Al is still there, not going to get Sam. Annie ends up getting a knife and seems to have the upper hand. She even like cuts him or something along those lines. He makes it like he's going to leave, but then he closes the door on her hand, gets the knife out of her hand, and basically her situation has become very precarious. So Sam is in a stop-dead traffic, and the taxi driver wants to get sex advice from him.
I mean, I don't blame him.
Right.
You got a famous person in your cab, you're going to take advantage of it.
Might as well.
The cab driver is played by Paul Roach. He was in the movies Liar, Liar, and Bugsy.
Okay. So Sam, stuck in stop-dead traffic, finally gets a visit from Al, decides to get out of his car and leap on the top of cars. Pun intended. I'm glad I got the chance to be able to say that.
This is that scene,
yes.
Right? This is the one you remember from the episode
right,
that makes it so gimmicky and weird.
Okay, so I'm going to remind you at this point the stakes. This person is going to die soon. She's in the middle of being potentially sexually assaulted. I'm not even sure that I'm allowed to say that without getting censored, but whatever. Her situation is not good. And we're still playing this scene for laughs leading up to this. So, like, Sam going to rescue her.
Yeah. And also, I want to point out, even though the traffic was at a standstill, there's room between the cars. It's not like there's 6 lanes of traffic. There's place that you could be running on the ground.
Right. No, it's more effective to be jumping on top of
But he literally climbs over the cars.
Right.
Like, why are we doing that?
To attract maximum attention to himself. Because
So, and then we're going to play with the fact that we have a guest star as our mirror image. But we're not using Dr. Ruth for this because we're not going to actually put this woman in scenes. So we have a Dr. Ruth stunt double visible a dozen times in the next 2 minutes.
Right.
Through every mirror in the city.
Yes.
That looks nothing like Dr. Ruth.
You didn't want to get Dr. Ruth, the actual Dr. Ruth, jumping up and down on cars and running?
Well, if we're going to be doing mirror images, we should have used her face for some of them.
Right.
Because we have very clear mirror images of this stunt double.
Right.
Over and over and over again.
Yes.
This stunt double who, I mean, doesn't look anything like Dr. Ruth or Sam.
Right.
Whether it's in looks or statue. It's like, who is this person? So we've got this third person in a blue dress. And that would be fine for just the stunt double part of it. But the fact that we're using it for mirror image over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Why? It's so weird.
Yeah. I mean, the entire thing is just weird because, like I said, it undermines the Jeopardy plot that's going on right now. You know, we have this woman who's about to die. And we're still doing this goofy shit. Like, so it definitely undermines that part of the story. But, so, while Jonathan is basically all over Annie manages to get away from him, and Sam gets the apartment. He gets, and, you know, basically, Jonathan is trying to lie to him, saying, oh, you know, she came on to me. So, you basically went to her apartment, and for her to come on to you?
Yeah.
Right. So anyway.
He's pulling an Aaliyah here.
Yeah. So Sam has Annie call the police. Jonathan, and he doesn't end up letting Jonathan go. They end up getting into a fight, and Sam ends up winning this fight.
Yes, because Sam does his,
kung fu,
kickboxing, whatever.
Thing, yeah.
We get another weird mirror image of this happening.
Yes.
But instead of having Dr. Ruth on the set, we have that weird stunt double again.
Yeah.
Who doesn't look anything like anybody.
Right. So Al ends up telling Sam that Annie becomes an attorney. Debbie and Doug are announcing their wedding plans on the air as they speak. Annie is wondering what happened to Jonathan when she comes back out because he's now unconscious on the floor. And Sam says, oh, he tripped. Her neighbor comes in wondering if she's okay. Interesting that she did not show up before now, but whatever. Sam asks Al why he hasn't left. And it's so Al can have more therapy sessions.
Yeah, so we're told at this point, Ziggy says the entire reason for the leap was so that Al could have a session with Dr. Ruth.
Now, I'm going to point out the fact that the real Dr. Ruth is alive in 1999.
Right.
So Al could just go and see
Go
her.
and actually see her. I mean, this kind of forces her into the situation.
I mean, I guess, but yeah.
But yeah, what I find really weird about this is, does that mean Doug and Debbie were not supposed to get together?
Right.
Does it mean we weren't supposed to help Annie?
Right.
Like, was she actually meant to just be stuck in this situation? Maybe not killed, but...
Right, yeah. I mean, she was certainly better off before Sam's initial interference, for sure.
Right.
Because she didn't die.
She didn't die, but we don't know what actually would have happened
Right.
to her without any intervention. But were we not supposed to influence Anita Hill? Like,
I mean...
We're suggesting that Sam, it was all just coincidental that he actually did any good while he was here because the leap wasn't about Dr. Ruth or anybody at all.
Right. It was about Al and Dr. Ruth meeting, which is just goopy shit. Like, that can't be the reason why he left here. But anyway, moving along. So, the reason he hasn't left is, so Al is laying on the waiting room table. Dr. Ruth talks about loving his first wife, Beth. And he eventually admits to loving Tina differently. And he tells her, and then she ends up telling him to go tell Tina that he loves her. And this is not going to mean anything in the episodes because this entire history is going to be deleted. But
now this is the part that I always really remember from this episode.
Yeah.
I know I've talked about this scene a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I particularly use this to describe the revival series. You know, the whole love it differently thing.
Ah, yes.
So I always loved this scene. I thought it was cute. You know, like getting Al to admit that he loves Tina. One thing I picked up during this scene is Al says him and Tina have been together for 4 years.
Okay.
Which is right around how long the project's been happening.
Right.
Kind of seems to indicate it's possible that Genesis Tina is
actual
this
Tina? Okay.
Like, and that is the start of their relationship.
Interesting.
It lines up that they had just kind of met right around the time of the leap.
So the Tina of the premiere might actually be the actual Tina.
Based on the timeline, if they've been together for 4 years.
Okay. Unless he just happened to get with another girl named Tina, but...
I mean, sure.
Right.
Because this is Al.
I mean, like, my initial point was that my initial opinion was that might have actually been the real Tina back in the day. So
right.
That's always been a question for me.
But yeah, this felt like news to me that they've only been together 4 years. Because I kind of was under the impression they'd been together longer, like a lot longer than the project.
Yeah.
Now, I am going to also mention that in How the Test Was Won, he said that he met Tina playing poker in Vegas.
Okay.
So, but he didn't say when that happened, so I guess.
Fair enough.
That could have been any time.
Yeah. So, Dr. Roots, gets up, stands up, says, next! And then she ends up leaping. This is the one and only time that we will see a leaper leaping from the waiting room.
Right. We don't get to see Sam's leap out. We get to see it from Dr. Ruth's perspective in the waiting room. She leaps out, and Nigel Corrington leaps in. And I'll talk about this actor here, because he's not actually in the next episode.
No. He's not even... Oh, yeah, he's not even in a mirror image.
No.
Right.
There's a painting of him.
Yeah.
But this is... We have an actor credited here, plays Nigel Corrington. It is Robert McKenzie. He was in one episode of Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
An episode of 90210 and an episode of V.
Oh, okay. The original series or the new one?
The original, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, gotcha.
So yeah, we get to see him here, but this scene doesn't replay in the next episode. In the next episode, we get to see Sam sleep in.
Right.
which is, again, it's different than how we usually play this. We're not just playing the same scene, 2 different versions. We're literally seeing both sides of it, which is kind of cool.
It is.
But yeah, Nigel leaps in and...
Yeah, he's a very hideous-looking man.
He takes off Dr. Ruth's glasses.
Yep.
Because remember, those were just made for her.
Right.
And shows vampire fangs.
I'm also going to point out, though, the rest of the outfit fits.
Exactly. He magically has bigger clothes that fit him. He's not wearing these miniature clothes that were hemmed for Dr. Ruth.
Right.
Which doesn't make any sense. And again, why were we brought that attention?
Right.
Because, yeah, that's silly.
Yes.
It's so silly.
And yeah, he has vampire teeth and everything, and that's where the episode ends.
And that's where the episode ends. There's a vampire in the waiting room.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
That could be bad.
All right, so there were certainly worse episodes than this one, for sure. It definitely is very firmly in okay territory. It's a gimmicky episode. I would say it's probably one of the better gimmicky episodes because, like I said, the other one that comes to mind is Heart of a Champion, and I was not really a huge fan of that episode. But yeah, next up is Blood Moon, which happens to be Tommy Thompson's final credited writing effort on the series. Though I recently learned from Hayden during trivia that he actually wrote The Beast Within, though he's not credited for it. And I think Tommy Thompson, as the executive producer, or I think he was an executive producer, he was up there, did have some uncredited rewrites in scripts all the way throughout the series.
This is a classic writer's room, right?
Yeah.
There is a collaboration of people who are working on all the episodes.
Right.
It's just a matter of who gets the actual billing of the writer for each episode. But they were all collaborative works. I'm imagining much more so back then than today because they actually literally worked in a room together.
Right. Yes.
Writers' rooms today are digital. You know, they meet over Zoom and chat about their work. But back then it was literally like, every day we're working together in the same space.
Now, I mentioned quite a few times that this is not my favorite episode coming up, Blood Moon. And it's not necessarily even because I think it's a bad episode. It's just, like, I've never liked gothic horror. I brought that up several times throughout the podcast talking about this series. So it's not really my thing. I'm really actually kind of curious how I'm going to feel about it rewatching it. Because, it might be that the case where I think better of it.
I don't think I've ever really had the problems with it that maybe I think a lot of people do. And I know even Tommy Thompson has said it's like his least favorite episode.
Right, yeah.
It's another one for me that just feels kind of gimmicky. It's a different kind of gimmick.
Right.
But it's always like, oh, we're in London. Why? And, we're dealing with just very different kind of scenario than we ever have, and it just doesn't feel necessarily like a Quantum Leap episode. I think is probably my biggest criticism of it. It doesn't fit the pattern of like anything we normally would do.
Gotcha.
And but I mean, aside from all that, I think it's okay as far as the story goes, and I like the actress. I don't know her name, but she stands out to me.
Yeah. I do remember her being quite good. She fits into the whole gothic horror aesthetic. That type of acting. Yeah, I'm really not sure how I'm gonna feel about it. Actually, watching the episode, I didn't have any deep criticisms of it, other than I just didn't like it.
I mean, I think that's kind of a general feeling. Is people just don't generally really like the episode.
So yeah, we'll see next week probably.
Sometime soon.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah,
lately.
we
our schedules kind of like became.
It kind of got blown up.
Yeah, we had a plan. We had a plan for this whole year, and now we're flailing just a little bit.
Right, yeah.
But we'll get it there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Everything will get done.
Yep. All right, so any further thoughts about this episode or anything other?
That's all I've got about Dr. Ruth.
Okay, we'd like to hear from you. What'd you think of this episode? What'd you think of this podcast? Stacie can be reached at.
I can reach out on Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at TVN Coupon Talk.
If you like this video and want to support the channel, the number of ways to do so, you can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can join the Core Productions Facebook page. You can buy something from the Core Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a coffee. You can join the Core Productions membership for 99 cents a month, starting at 99 cents a month. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribe to the channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Core Productions, signing off.